What happens when a duchess walks onto a talk show thinking she owns the place, only to discover that respect is earned, not demanded? In just 35 seconds of careless words, Meghan Markle would turn what should have been a friendly chat into one of the most shocking confrontations in British television history. The studio lights were blazing bright that evening. Jonathan Ross sat in his usual chair, that familiar smile on his face, ready to welcome his guest. The audience was buzzing with excitement. After all, it wasn't every day that Meghan Markle appeared on a talk show. She walked out wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people earn in a year, waving to the crowd like she was greeting her loyal subjects. "Welcome, welcome," Jonathan said warmly, standing to greet her. "So lovely to have you here tonight." Meghan gave a tight smile and sat down, crossing her legs and immediately checking her reflection in the camera monitor. She didn't say thank you. She didn't acknowledge his greeting properly. She just settled into her seat like she was doing him a favor by being there. "So," Jonathan began, trying to warm things up, "you've had quite the journey, haven't you? From acting to royal life. And now, well, everything that's come after." Meghan's smile faded. "I'd rather not talk about the past, Jonathan. I'm here to discuss my future projects, the things that actually matter." The audience went quiet. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Jonathan, ever the professional, nodded slowly. Of course. Tell us about these projects then." "Well," Meghan said, flipping her hair back, "I'm launching a new lifestyle brand. It's about empowerment, about showing people how to live their best lives, something I think your audience could really learn from." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "Learn from?" "Yes," she continued, not picking up on his tone. "I mean, look around. Most people are just going through the motions. They don't understand what it means to truly curate a life of meaning and purpose." A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. "I think a lot of people watching would say they have quite meaningful lives, actually. Working hard, raising families, contributing to their communities." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. "Sure, but there's a difference between existing and truly living, isn't there? That's what I'm trying to teach." "Teach?" Jonathan's smile was becoming more fixed now. "That's an interesting word choice." "Well, someone has to," Meghan said. "I've been given this platform for a reason. People look up to me. They want to know how I do it all." Jonathan sat back in his chair. "Right. And how do you do it all exactly?" "It's about priorities," Meghan said confidently. "Knowing what matters. Surrounding yourself with the right people. I've had to cut out so much negativity from my life. Family, friends, anyone who doesn't support my vision." The audience was completely silent now. Jonathan glanced at them, then back at Meghan. "That sounds quite lonely, if I'm honest." Meghan's eyes narrowed. "Lonely? I have millions of supporters around the world." "Supporters aren't the same as loved ones, though." "Are they?" Jonathan said gently. "You wouldn't understand," Meghan shot back. "You've never had to deal with the kind of scrutiny I've faced. The press, the public, everyone picking apart every little thing I do." Jonathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I wouldn't understand scrutiny. Meghan, I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've been torn apart by critics, had my personal life splashed across tabloids, been the subject of countless controversies. Trust me, I understand." "It's different when you're at my level," Meghan said coldly. The audience gasped. Even Jonathan looked genuinely shocked. "Your level?" "Yes," Meghan said, doubling down. "I mean, no offense, Jonathan, but you're a talk show host. I'm married into royalty. I've dined with world leaders. I've been on the cover of Vogue. We're not exactly operating in the same sphere." Jonathan was quiet for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. The audience began to murmur, and not in a supportive way. "No offense taken," he said finally, his voice much cooler now. "Though I have to say, for someone who married into royalty, you seem to have forgotten one of the most basic royal principles." And what's that? Meghan asked, her tone dripping with condescension. Humility, Jonathan said simply. Meghan's face flushed red. Excuse me? You heard me, Jonathan said, his famous friendliness completely gone now. You come onto my show, into my studio, in front of my audience, and you insult not just me, but everyone watching. You talk about teaching people how to live, but what exactly have you accomplished besides marrying well? How dare you, Meghan hissed. I was a successful actress. You had a supporting role on a cable show, Jonathan corrected. A fine job, nothing to be ashamed of, but hardly the credentials for lecturing the world on how to live. Meghan stood up. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. No, you don't, Jonathan agreed, also standing. But you did choose to come here. You chose to accept this invitation. And you chose to be rude, dismissive, and frankly, quite offensive. I'm offensive? Meghan's voice was rising now. You're the one attacking me. I'm not attacking you, Jonathan said calmly. I'm responding to your behavior. There's a difference. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Meghan shouted. This is why I left. Everyone is so threatened by a strong, successful woman that they have to tear her down. Jonathan shook his head. This has nothing to do with you being a woman, Meghan. This has everything to do with you being disrespectful. You can be strong and successful without being condescending. I want to leave, Meghan announced, looking around frantically. Where's my team? Get me out of here. The door's right there, Jonathan said, pointing. Though I should mention, we're live. Everyone's watching this. Meghan froze. Her eyes went wide as she seemed to suddenly remember that this wasn't a private conversation. Cameras were pointed at her. Hundreds of audience members were staring. Millions were watching at home. You ambushed me, she stammered. I asked you about your projects, Jonathan said tiredly. You're the one who decided to insult everyone in the room. My publicist will be hearing about this, Meghan threatened. I'm sure they will, Jonathan replied, along with everyone else in the country. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. Her hands were shaking. You're a horrible person, Jonathan. Truly horrible. Because I didn't let you talk down to people? Jonathan asked. Because I didn't sit quietly while you insulted my audience? Because you're small, Meghan spat. Small-minded, small time, small everything. You couldn't handle having someone important on your show. The audience began to boo. Not loudly, not aggressively, but a steady, disapproving sound that filled the studio. Meghan looked around, shocked, as if she couldn't believe they were turning on her. That's enough, Jonathan said firmly. I think it's time for you to go. You're kicking me off? Meghan's voice cracked slightly. You kicked yourself off the moment you forgot basic manners, Jonathan said. I'm just making it official. Meghan's mouth opened and closed like a fish. This will ruin you. Do you understand that? When people hear about this, your career is over. Jonathan actually smiled at that. Meghan, people are hearing about this right now, and somehow I think I'll be fine. You're nothing, Meghan yelled, her composure completely gone now. You're a nobody who sits in a chair and asks stupid questions for a living. And yet, Jonathan said quietly, I'm not the one being escorted off a television set. 2 security guards had appeared at the edge of the stage. They weren't touching Meghan, weren't threatening her, but their presence was clear. It was time to go. Meghan looked at them, then at Jonathan, then at the audience. Her face was a mixture of rage and humiliation. This isn't over. Actually, Jonathan said, walking back to his chair and sitting down, it very much is. Meghan stood there for another few seconds, as if waiting for someone to stop this, to rewind time, to make it not happening. But no one moved. The audience was silent. The cameras kept rolling, and Jonathan just sat there, looking at her calmly. Finally, she turned and stormed toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. She got halfway there before turning back one more time. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it," Jonathan called back. And then she was gone, disappearing through the door with the security guards following at a respectful distance. The studio erupted. Some people were applauding. Others were laughing in disbelief. Everyone was talking at once. Then Jonathan waited for the noise to die down before speaking. "Well," he said, running a hand through his hair. "That was unexpected." The audience laughed, the tension finally breaking. "I want to be clear about something," Jonathan continued, his voice serious now. "I don't enjoy confrontation. I didn't bring Meghan here to embarrass her. I invited her because I thought we'd have an interesting conversation." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "But I will not tolerate disrespect. Not to me, not to my team, and certainly not to you, the people watching at home. You deserve better than to be talked down to." The audience applauded again, louder this time. "We're going to take a quick break," Jonathan said. "When we come back, we'll have our next guest, someone who actually wants to be here. Stay with us." The cameras cut, and Jonathan slumped back in his chair, letting out a long breath. His producer rushed over, headset still on, eyes wide. "That was insane," the producer said. "Tell me about it," Jonathan muttered. "The phones are ringing off the hook," the producer continued. "Social media is exploding. Everyone's talking about it." Jonathan nodded slowly. "Is she gone?" "Left the building," the producer confirmed. "Her team tried to demand we delete the footage." Jonathan actually laughed at that. "We're live. What do they think we're going to delete?" "That's what I said," the producer agreed. "They're threatening legal action." "Let them threaten," Jonathan said, straightening up. "We have footage of everything. She insulted me, the audience, and made a complete fool of herself. And there's nothing to sue over." The makeup artist appeared to touch up his face before they came back from commercial. She was trying not to smile. "Something funny?" Jonathan asked. "Just, I've worked in television for 15 years, she said. "I've never seen anything like that." "Neither have I," Jonathan admitted, "and I've been doing this a long time." "You handled it perfectly, though," she said. "Standing up for yourself, for the audience. That took guts." Jonathan shrugged. "Took basic decency, more like. I wasn't going to sit there and let her treat people like they were beneath her." The floor manager started counting down. 30 seconds until they were back on air. Jonathan took a sip of water and cleared his throat. When the cameras came back on, he was all smiles again, though there was a slight weariness around his eyes. "Welcome back," he said. "Now, I know everyone's probably still processing what just happened. I am too, honestly." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Here's the thing. I've interviewed thousands of people over my career. Actors, musicians, politicians, athletes, royals even, and the vast majority of them, regardless of how famous or successful they are, treat people with respect." The audience was hanging on every word. "But every once in a while," Jonathan continued, "you meet someone who's forgotten that fame isn't the same as character. That having a platform doesn't make you better than anyone else. And when that happens, well, you saw what happens." More applause. Jonathan smiled and held up his hands. All right. Enough about that. We have a wonderful show still to come." The rest of the episode went smoothly, but there was an electricity in the air that hadn't been there before. The remaining guests seemed extra polite, extra gracious, as if they'd all learned a valuable lesson from Meghan's spectacular failure. During another commercial break, Jonathan checked his phone. The video clips were already everywhere. Twitter was trending with multiple hashtags. News sites were posting articles with headlines like "Meghan Markle's disastrous interview" and "Jonathan Ross kicks Duchess off show." His phone buzzed with a text from an old friend. "Mate, you're a legend. That was brilliant." Jonathan smiled slightly but didn't respond. He wasn't interested in gloating. He'd done what needed to be done, nothing more. When the show finally wrapped, he stayed to thank the audience personally as they filed out. Many of them stopped to shake his hand, on to tell him he'd done the right thing. An older woman patted his arm. "My daughter thinks she's some kind of hero," she said. "Keeps going on about empowerment and finding her truth. Maybe this'll show her that there's a difference between confidence and arrogance." Jonathan nodded. "I hope so. For everyone's sake." Back in his dressing room, he loosened his tie and sat down heavily. His assistant knocked and poked her head in. "You okay?" she asked. "Tired," Jonathan admitted. "That took more out of me than I expected." "You were amazing, though," she said. "Seriously, the way you stood your ground, but never lost your cool, that was masterclass." "I almost did lose my cool," Jonathan confessed. "When she called me small, I wanted to really let her have it." "But you didn't," his assistant pointed out. "You stayed professional. You made your point without stooping to her level." Jonathan smiled. "I suppose that's something." His phone rang. He glanced at the screen and saw it was his wife. He answered immediately. "Hello, love." "I just watched," she said. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," he assured her. "Bit rattled, but fine." "She was awful to you," his wife said, anger in her voice. "Absolutely awful." "She was," Jonathan agreed. "But it's over now." "Everyone's on your side," his wife told him. "Everyone. I haven't seen a single person defending her." "I'm not surprised," Jonathan said. "She didn't exactly give them much to defend." They talked for a few more minutes before Jonathan hung up and started gathering his things. He wanted to go home, pour a drink, and forget this night had ever happened. But he knew he wouldn't be forgetting it anytime soon, and none of them would. As he walked to his car, he thought about what had really bothered him about the whole encounter. It wasn't the insults, though those had stung. It wasn't even the arrogance, though that had been breathtaking. It was the complete lack of self-awareness. The inability to see how she was coming across. The genuine belief that she was better than everyone else in that room. Jonathan had met plenty of famous people. Genuinely important people who'd changed the world. And almost without exception, they'd been kind, humble, grateful for their opportunities. Meghan had none of that. She had the trappings of importance, the designer clothes, and the royal connection, and the millions of followers. But she'd missed the fundamental truth that real class, real dignity, comes from how you treat others. He got in his car and started the engine. Tomorrow, the world would still be talking about this. There would be think pieces and hot takes, and probably some people trying to spin it as something it wasn't. But Jonathan knew the truth. He'd given someone a platform, and they'd used it to show exactly who they were. Not a victim, not a hero, just someone who'd let whatever fame they had go straight to their head. And in the end, that was the saddest part of all.